Hey everybody, this is Dust for Dust on Gaming with a little bit of our M19 standard Sendoff here, playing some Mono Blue Wizards, one of the decks that I really haven't touched all that much this standard season. It's kind of a fun deck. I've played against it a couple times in some of our other Sendoff videos. We played against it with Mono Green. I think we also played it against it with Mono Red in the practice things. This particular list is Ken Yukihiro's list from the Japanese Nationals. And this is just a friendly reminder before we get into some magical gatherings here, that if you like the channel, please consider subscribing. And if you like what we're doing here and you really want to support the channel, please consider checking out our Patreon page. So, wondering what is going on with the internet dropping frames lately. Very bizarre. May have to lower the visual rate here on this one of these times. Alright, so anyways, Mono Blue Wizards. Basically, you're a Mono Blue tempo deck, playing things like Slither Blade, Siren Storm Tamer, try to get on the battlefield early, use things like Brawl to get a mana advantage, Merfolk Trickster to kind of disrupt what your opponent's doing, this Nimble Obstructionist to disrupt your opponent either as a flying flash thing to mess up timing, or use its ability to cycle, disrupt Planeswalker ultimates, a whole lot of other things you can disrupt, Eternalize things you can disrupt, etc. Tempest Shin here is kind of the heavy hitter in the deck. You're playing basically all islands, so if you get 4, 5, 6 islands in play, suddenly you're hitting with a 6/4. So a lot of dangerous stuff going on with this deck. Beyond that, you know, you've got a bunch of counter spells, a bunch of like unsummon, couple spell pierces, some dive downs to prevent your opponent's things from connecting. Curious Obsession is a very large draw to this deck. Pumps up your team, also makes it possible to disrupt what your opponent's doing by, you know, increasing your clock. You know, especially when you have all these evasion creatures, they either can't be blocked or have flying. It's really easy to start piling on the card advantage if your opponent doesn't have a removal spell immediately for what you're trying to do. So, alright, let me try to... I'll be right back. Alright, I lowered the video bitrate. We'll see if that makes any changes in terms of, like, dropping frame rates, etc. Not sure what's going on that we're having so many issues with drop frames all of a sudden when internet had been perfectly fine for a really long time. So, like, I literally went many moons without having issues, so I'm not sure why we're having huge drop rates all of a sudden. It's kind of frustrating, honestly, especially since it seems to be disrupting streams and such. So I will have to look to see what is potentially going on at time here. So, alright, so Mono Blue Wizards, we already went over the main deck. A bunch of counter spells, a bunch of tempo-based creatures trying to kill your opponent quickly, leveraging your tempo stuff. You're using Tempest Jin as your finisher. Sideboard, basically a bunch of counter spells and some disruption like Sleep. Tap all your opponent's creatures, buy yourself a turn or two. Diamond Mare buys you turns against aggro decks. It's a 1/3, can block a lot of the creatures out of the mono red decks. Also ends up you know, allowing you to gain some life because you're playing all blue spells. You just name blue when you play it. Aether Sphere Harvester also helps in racing situations, kind of a resilient threat against whatever your opponent's doing. So, alright, beyond that, let's get into some games. Not really sure what's going on with the internet here. It's actually getting quite frustrating. That's the second day in a row we're having issues. And I've even dropped the bit rate trying to improve our output. It seems like we've stabilized to a certain degree, but we're still dropping some number of frames, which is disappointing. Wish our opponent good luck here. Alright, so we only have one threat, which is Kind of scary, but we're going to go ahead and keep here. Storm Team are in the Curious Obsession unless they have specifically like a shock or a fatal push. We're going to get in some amount of damage here. Well, green deck's going to be a little scary. Looks like they're on Merfolk here, so don't know how our racing situation is against Merfolk. This Third Blade, that might actually be a better thing than even Storm Tamer. Alright, opponent's looking to race here. Being on the draw in this matchup is probably going to suck a lot. Draw a card, yes, I would. Play out this Siren Storm Tamer. Guess it helps if I move to my second main phase. Merfolk's going to survive largely, so it's one archetype. These two archetypes might square off quite a bit in the new standard format. Water Weaver enters the battlefield, tap target creature opponent controls. Yeah, that's going to make things a little more difficult to win here. Especially if they tap down our Slither Blade. Yep. I think this is one of those decks where being on the play is a tremendous asset. Like, we're so far behind on the board right now, it's kind of a joke almost. Not sure what is going on. Go ahead and Essence scatter that. I think we're at the point where we gotta start chump blocking a little bit here. Say we really need a Tempest Djinn or something here. Kind of start stabilizing the ground. Nimble Obstructionist. We'll just pass here, planning on playing that in combat. Opponent's playing Wizard's Retort of their own. So we can chump block to stay alive here, but we're still in a lot of trouble next turn. Know there's any combination of cards that get us out from here. On the sideboarding against Merfolk. So Jace's defeat. Might be interested in Diamond Mare. We'll have to see on that one. Yep, Mono Blue Bulk is a good name for it. Jan, is there some issues with the stream? Like, I'm showing a lot of issues on my end. Like, I'm having drop frames. It's not listing anybody as watching or anything. So, I'm wondering what's going on with the stream. Yeah, no, I understand. I'm just saying, are you noticing, like, any issues with, like, lag or anything? Yeah, I know yesterday there were problems, and then when I first started streaming today, there were some issues with some drop frames and stuff. Okay, I dropped the bitrate trying to not have any issues with drop frames. And I know I'm not playing the most popular decks right now, so that's probably why there aren't too many people watching. But this is something that's kind of my own, like, little... Don't think we need Spell Pierce here. So, let's kind of go with this. Mono Blue Wizards versus Merfolk. One land. Can't keep this hand. Guess this hand's okay. Sure, we'll keep Essence Scatter here. How's your day going, Jan? Opponent's on Merfolk. I think a lot of people are starting to practice decks that are going to survive rotation. Merfolk is certainly one of them. Wizards to a certain extent. I think I'll just go ahead and counter this. Maybe I was supposed to get Trickster into play here and get that pressure going. But Sleep's a nice one, but we do need to find more sources of pressure here. Monument's not going to be legal anymore, so I don't know if that's going to be too terribly relevant. Because Monument rotates. Oh, never mind. You're talking about, whatchamacallit, yeah. Yeah, you talked about that like that before. Yeah, Deep Root Waters is a rough card, especially for like a control deck to deal with if it resolves. Card is supremely annoying. Speak of the devil, and it shall appear. We have no Curious Obsession or anything though, so... So what... Okay, what's going on? Yeah. Too many lands. Too many lands, no card advantage. Yeah, Arena's going to be resetting next week, so in anticipation of the new set, so I honestly don't know. I suppose the one matchup you like really want it in is against mono red, and if you're not seeing a lot of mono red, maybe that's part of it. I do like the way Obsession is templated, in that you don't have to attack specifically with the creature that's enchanted. So our flyers are still able to presumably get in here. That is bizarre then. That is very, very bizarre. Kamina is going to be a bit of a problem. Jan, do you see any issues with the stream at the moment? Because I'm dropping some frames. I'm wondering if you're noticing any issues. Yeah. That's how humans usually beat them in Modern, too. Mantis Rider. They can't get their board bigger than Merfolk. Mantis Rider can usually go over the top. That's extremely unfortunate. I think that's going to cost us the game then. That Jin was like our one chance to kind of kill them. Yeah, that's the match. Yeah, historically Blue's known for flyers. I wish... So the annoying part about streaming on YouTube here is the fact that, like, Twitch has the ability to do test streams and stuff, whereas YouTube does not. So it's kind of annoying that you can't really potentially bad. Okay, so it says stream health is happy right now. I don't like YouTube certainly lags behind in Twitch in terms of... Yeah. Like, I like streaming on Twitch or on YouTube, but there are some things that Twitch just does better in terms of like some of the interaction stuff's a lot smoother, etc. So we're on the play of this game, which is some mistake we made in the Merfolk matchup. We're dodging that. We're getting the mirror match. Nice. To be fair, I think the Merfolk matchup was too, to a certain degree. Oh, this is gonna be... You know what's ironic? Because I've only played like 7 or 8 standard matchups the last couple of days, but I think this is like the 3rd time we've played against the Blue Wizards deck. I mean, I know it's ridiculously cheap and part of it survives rotation, but it's like, okay, maybe they're not mono blue then. Huh. Wow, they're not mono blue. They've got... Are they pirates? Yep. Looks like they're pirates. That's another tribe that could potentially get very interesting. Hold up Wizard's Retort and dive down here. Yeah, but it's nice to see people experimenting with stuff going into new standard format. Like, I hate when standard turns into like a 2 or 3 deck butt kicking contest. And honestly, with all the energy nonsense and everything else the last couple years, we've been staring that down a lot, so... This is obviously not the best time of whatever to be streaming standard, you know, a week before rotation. So. You're right, it didn't, but at the same time, so what am I pitching here? I guess just an island. You're right, it didn't, but at the same time, you at least had a range of decks that were playable. Like, unlike when it was like Energy and Mardu Vehicles, or Saheeli combo and Mardu Vehicles, or Aetherworks Marvel, you at least had a range of like 5 to 8 decks you could play that were competitive. What on earth is our opponent trying to set up here? Excuse me. And to be fair, there are a few other decks that popped up. Mono Green's popped up. This blue deck's popped up. Okay, let's Dispersal. Sure. I'm trying to get us to pop the Storm Tamer here. Alright, and opponent skips it up. Oh, I agree. But don't forget, Teferi and Chainwhirler aren't going anywhere. Actually, I think Gearhulk did more damage in those blue-black decks. Well, Chainwhirler will survive, but its supporting cast is severely weakened. Not sure which cards I'm interested in here. Jace's Defeat, probably. Maybe for like a Spell Pierce. Yeah, beyond Jace's Defeat, though, I'm not really sure what I want to bring in here. Yeah, Harvester might have been good. Especially being on the draw here. This hand is very reactive and not particularly good, but I think we keep it. It's really unfortunate, that... Okay. Not really sure what all's in their deck. This Warkite Marauder is interesting. Makes attacking and particularly blocking a little bit obnoxious. I think we just counter whatever they play this turn. You have a Curious Obsession. Looks like they're doing a lot of the same things our deck is doing, they're just using a small black splash here. Love to draw like an unsummon here or something. Yeah. But like I think Standard will be largely... Oh, joy. Well, I don't know if we're surviving that. We need like one of our unsummon effects this next turn step or we're in trouble. Okay. So you just sacrificed your Curious Obsession because you clicked through combat. Okay, so our opponent concedes. Sure, whatever. So... Doesn't look like we're dropping frames anymore. Looks like whatever the issues were seem to have worked themselves out for now. Still like to know what was going on, that some of these streams have had some rough beginnings to them. Been kind of curious, but annoying. As far as Standard or Modern? I think Standard is going to be too open to decide what's playable and what's not. Modern, there's only really a couple of cards that'll be really affecting things too terribly much. I've looked at some of it. A lot of stuff I like to go, like, play it in Limited and get a feel for its power, and then go from there. And the fact that I already basically have a Standard deck that I just need to get some cards for to update the what's going on. Surveilled, yeah. All the tribal decks I expect to see some play. The blue-white, or the blue-black control decks I expect to be a thing. Turbo Fog will be a thing, with the mana is going to be clunky until the new set comes out. I'm actually shocked that Wizards printed another Fog. But then again, this is the same company that can't even decide how its Pro Tour is going to shape up right now. Like, from a casual aspect, I'm really happy with Magic right now, but from a someone that wants to play on a little bit higher competitive level, I think Wizards is really punting some stuff. It seems like the less plays your opponent has early, the better off this mono blue deck is. Three Tempest, you say? Really like to draw a land so I can at least... Maybe I'm supposed to deploy a Jin there? I'm not really sure. Yep, that one's gonna have to resolve, unfortunately. It's kind of like Delver, but it doesn't have anywhere near the tools that Blue-White Delver had access to. I guess we pitch a Jin here. No, I didn't want to run Baral out there because I wanted to hold up Trickster. Trickster's more damage. And I don't think our opponent's going to have too terribly many creatures going on in their deck. What on earth is this? It's like a fog or something? Samut. I think we'll just hold up, dive down, and Essence Scatter here. Sure. Wait to see what you target here. I can see this deck being an absolute nightmare for Esper and blue-white control. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm glad we diversified our threats. Yeah, the problem is the only counter we have is that Essence Scatter, and it's not particularly good in this matchup, I don't think. Gonna get punished if our opponent has a sweeper here. but I think we just need more threats on the board. Yeah, it's only a counter for spot removal, though. Feels like our opponent's going for something big here. Ah. That should be the game. Right, I didn't even think about that activated ability, honestly. Alright, so our opponent's got some big creatures, but we're not sure. Like, are they just like a Naya mid-range list that's playing like some amount of like ramp with Gift of Paradise? Is that all that's going on here? Feels like the spell pierces aren't too great. Question is, what cards do we want then? Some amount of sleep? I really wish there was like a second unsummon on the board even. Get a copy of sleep in here. Maybe another Essence Scatter or a Negate here. Huh. Yeah. It's a card I really wish I'd already invested in. Because one of the two decks that I'm going to be playing a lot of is probably Turbo Fog, and Carnage Tyrant's kind of an essential piece of Turbo Fog. So, oh, you meant in this matchup? I think Carnage Tyrant may honestly be too slow. Just bringing a random Syncopate? Hand's pretty reasonable. Oh, the wonders of having to play wonky 3-color mana bases. Yeah, this hand's pretty good. I wish we had some of these hands against the, I think there's going to be a Seal Away here, so I'm going to have to hold up Dive Down. Probably not going to be able to get the Storm Tamer on the board this turn. See if they have another answer for it this turn. Adorned Pouncer. Okay. It's definitely playing some interesting cards. I don't think they have a second Seal Away here, so I'm not going to play around it. I'm just going to get a Jhin into play here. Get some more pressure going. They're not threatening one of their big 5 drops, so don't feel obliged to hold up Essence Scatter here, and I want to get more pressure on the board. Alright. Deck feels pretty legit in certain matchups. Like, it felt like the decks that can get other creatures on the board early, like that Merfolk matchup, felt pretty bad. The Pirates pseudo blue flyer mirror match felt alright. Although our opponent conceded early because they misclicked and lost their Curious Obsession. And then that matchup against the mid-range stuff. So Obviously, Curious Obsession doesn't go anywhere. I think Dive Down stays in the format. Storm Tamer does. Red Black's also not. The power of Red Black is in its 3, 4, and 5 drops. And this deck on the play can go, like if it goes like Storm Tamer or Slither Blade into either Hold Up a Counterspell or Curious Obsession, this deck can snowball against a deck like Red Black. The problem we ran into with the Merfolk deck is that Merfolk is the tribal synergy compounds and their creatures get bigger. Whereas Red Black's card quality is higher, but you can pick apart with counter spells, bounce spells, you know, blanking a key removal spell. You can't do that against a deck like Merfolk. That's part of what makes, in Modern, what makes decks like Spirits and Humans so obnoxious, as well as Merfolk, is the fact that one removal spell doesn't, like, or one removal or one counter spell doesn't stop what the deck's trying to do. Whereas Red-Black, you know, if you have pressure on the board, countering their Goblin Chainwhirler on 3 or countering their Chandra or Phoenix on 4 might be the game, especially if you already have a Tempest Djinn plucking in for 3 or 4 damage a turn. So I think this deck's actually a little bit more mana efficient than Red-Black. It's not as powerful, but it's more mana efficient. It's the same thing that what this deck probably gives Control Deck fits, is because it's more mana efficient. Especially with a couple copies of Baral on the list. It's very possible this deck's just so mana efficient that Control, if it can't answer the first creature or two, just dies. So, like I said, I haven't played anywhere near enough of this archetype, but if Ken Yukihiro is playing this at Japanese Nationals and Worlds, there's a pretty good chance this deck's got some legs. The only thing I don't like on the wording of Djinn, if Djinn was +1/+0 for each island, I think this card would be great in the next format. Like, you could splash it in, like, you know, a Dimir deck, you know, even a 3-color deck like a lot of these, like people tried to do with Bolus and Chainwhirler. Could you imagine a deck if Tempest Djinn was templated differently, that was able to go like Tempest Djinn into Nicol Bolas into Demanding Dragon? That would be insane. But alas, the way it's templated, you really can't do that, so kind of sucks. But I guess Wizards decided to template it the way they templated it, so meh. This deck would have been great back in the, could you imagine if Mono Blue Devotion back in the day had access to Tempest Djinn to pair with, instead of even the Night Veil Spectre slot? So you would be able to go like Tempest Djinn into like Master of Waves back in the day. That would have been like complete total, yeah, 4-color decks while monocolor. Yeah. But it depends on how aggressive the format is. Like, the format's really aggressive, it's really going to punish people trying to play all those shock lands and buddy lands. So, oh well. Alright, so we don't seem like we're getting too many drop frames, so it seems like the quality is going decent here. Still like to know what was going on, that we were having issues with the stream earlier. I don't know if it's an internet issue, if it's just a connection between YouTube and OBS, what was going on. So, yeah, I don't know that much of his backstory, so yeah, agreed there. That's one of the reasons, like, so when Esper gets its full powered up thing and Turbo Fog gets its full powered up thing with the Shocklands, I'm interested to see like how many Shocklands are played and how many how many of the buddy lands are played. And the other thing I'm curious about is, like, how many lands are the control decks going to be able to get away with playing? Like, there's a lot of complaints about the come into play tapped effect of the cycle lands, but the fact that you can cycle them, you can get away with playing a higher amount of lands. Like, I suppose the jumpstart the 4-mana draw spell jumpstart allows you to, like, cash in a land for 2 cards, but it's going to be a little bit interesting to see, like, how the control decks end up, like, running their land counts without the cycling lands in the format. That's one of the things, like the cycling lands and the temples back during crap, why can't I remember, the Theros block era. We're able to kind of, like, smooth their stuff out by taking advantage of that. I think it's going to be underestimated how powerful those effects are, even with the lands coming to play tapped. Because honestly, Control doesn't want to play a lot of shock-in lands. Like, even look at Modern, how often, you know, like, you look at, like, a Jeskai mana base, or even Blue-White, how few shock lands it actually plays. Yeah, the cycling lands end up being really, really relevant, especially when they pair them with the bloody lands, so, you know, that was a thing. But, yeah, unfortunately, I need to get going here. It was going to be another short stream tonight. That's why I was doing another one of the M19 Sendoff things. I'm trying to think what decks. So, decks that remain in the format that are still relevant that need played. So here's the list of the big hitters, and I continue to go back to this because I want to be able to compare, like, it's because the fetch lands exist, Jan. I think if the fetch lands didn't exist, you'd see a lot more shock lands. So I'm doing this because I don't think last year I did a very good job of, like, showing what the entire format was like. So I wanted to kind of lay this out to see what the top decks work. Obviously, red black aggro we've played. We've played blue black midrange. We've played mono red flames. Esper control I still have to do, but obviously I've played that quite a bit this standard season. Haven't played GFG in any of the Sendoffs. We just played mono blue tempo. I have some past matches with Bant Nexus to review for that. I don't even think... No, I did mono red Keld last night. Oh. Sort of. It's losing, like, a lot of its 1-drops, so we'll see how effective it can be without, some type of replacements. I haven't played white-black knights, but that's another deck that's surviving rotation, and I need to play the blue-green version of Stompy, and I also think I need to find a Constrictor list. So, yeah, that might make sense. So I think the 2 decks that I still need to play are white-blue GFG and Winding Constrictor are going to be the last. Yeah, like, there's going to be aggro decks that are good, O'Doyle, but I don't see mono red specifically being great. So, remains to be seen how the format shakes out. I'm really kind of excited for the new standard format, and the fact that I'm going to be able to join the standard format right away with a deck already. So, I'm going to be paying quite a bit of attention to standard, and I'm going to be playing quite a bit of standard. But keeping in mind, I still have to get ready for that modern. I'm going to have to get ready for that modern RPTQ in December. So, I'm still going to have to do a lot of, like, modern testing in the top decks. But I'm definitely going to be playing a lot of standard, so. Not so much that. So, last year when the channel was new, I played a bunch of the decks. Like, I jokingly call it the send-off, but that way you can take a look back at, like, the standard decks. Well, I'm not going to do too much with hypothetical decks that will survive rotation right now until the decks start getting played. Because the pre-release is next weekend, and then that means the new standard is going to literally start popping up like within a week and a half on Magic Online. So, and even to a certain extent, Magic Arena. So there's really no reason to mess with rotation-proof decks right now, because in a week or two you're actually going to get the full standard thing. So, and I already have a rotation-proof deck in blue-white or blue-black Teferi control, so I'm not too interested in messing with decks until they start becoming a little more, like, ideas start becoming more formed, because I don't have the... Only having like 7 to 10 hours, 12 hours a week to really play Magic, I can't put a lot of time into brews that don't have substance behind them. I have to be very judicious with my time, especially with school going on. So that's why I have to be really hit or miss with what I play. So, while Modern was like 30. Yeah. Well, I mean, even look, up until Doyle just popped in, we've had maybe 2 to 3 people watching the stream tonight. And normally when I'm streaming Modern, you've probably got between, depending on what Modern deck it is, 7 to 10 this time of night. So obviously Standard's not that popular at the end of the format. So, but anyways, I want to thank you guys for hanging out tonight. I need to grab a shower and get to bed. 3 a.m. for work comes off early, so I will catch you guys later. Thanks for hanging out. This has been Dusk for Dusk to Dawn Gaming. Good night. Or good morning, depending on where you are.